You have to love this time of year in the NBA where there is no shortage of shock and drama when it comes to the type of deals and transactions throughout the league, all happening within a matter of 24 to 48 hours. But while some of the movement we saw across the league was expected, I don't think anything, at least at the time of this recording anyway, was more shocking than what we saw with the Milwaukee Bucks in executing, where they not only pried away a player from their division rival in Miles Turner when everyone thought that Turner would be returning to the Pacers given the success they had last season, but more importantly, arguably the biggest news of free agency thus far was the Milwaukee Bucks' decision to waive and stretch Damian Lillard and his remaining $113 million contract over the next 5 seasons, the largest waive and stretch transaction in the history of the league. This, of course, coming after Dame tore his Achilles in the playoffs and will be unable to play all of next season, a player that they went all in on to pair alongside Giannis to get the Bucks back to winning a championship. Last 2 seasons with the team, 2 first-round exits, and now has been waived. But while some would say this is a smart move, this is the right move to dump Dame now, get ahead of it, and bring in a player like Miles Turner, doing this to keep Giannis happy, keeping him in Milwaukee, and avoid their superstar and franchise player from requesting a trade. This was a desperation move, one that is without a doubt going to backfire and set this franchise back even further, and I'll explain why exactly in this video. Be sure to subscribe if you like this type of content, help us get to 100,000 subscribers, I would very much appreciate it. Now, I put out a video discussing the Miles Turner signing and how I can't believe the Pacers would let this happen after going to the finals this past season, all just to avoid the luxury tax because Halliburton got hurt and they would effectively be taking a gap year. So I won't reiterate all of that here, you can check out that video in case you missed it. But when I saw the Shams tweet that Miles Turner had signed with the Bucks after the initial shock and surprise to see that he was not re-signing with the Pacers, my assumption was this was going to be a sign and trade of some kind because the Bucks don't have the cap space to sign Turner to that kind of deal. And then we saw that it wasn't in fact a sign and trade. It was because the Bucks had decided to waive Damian Lillard, paving the way to create enough cap space to sign Miles Turner. Now look, I don't blame the Bucks for waiving Damian Lillard. I think it was pretty ruthless of a move to do that after the guy just suffered a career-altering injury, but the NBA is a business, a brutal business at times. And the Bucks had to be real with themselves and understand that not only is Dame going to miss all of next season, but when he does in fact come back, he's not going to be the same player. This isn't a situation like Halliburton or Jason Tatum tearing their Achilles in their mid-20s. Dame is about to be 35. He won't be returning to play basketball until he's 36. This is the beginning of the end of Damian Lillard's career. And for the Bucks, their main focus, everything they do is centered around Giannis. They have to do what's right for preserving and maximizing the prime of their franchise player, and wasting another year of his prime while Dame recovers and even beyond that when he does come back didn't make sense for this franchise, and so they had to pivot. But while all that is good and well and in theory makes sense and is in the best interest of the franchise, when you look at it further and assess what else the Bucks can do to bring them into title contention as well as understanding their long-term outlook, you realize the Bucks are actually in more trouble than they were before. And here's why. First, if you look at the Bucks roster and their depth chart, while you can say they're maybe slightly better than what they had last year, and yes, they still have Giannis, and Giannis alone is going to make them a good team, but you look at the rest of the roster, a roster of Giannis, Miles Turner, Kyle Kuzma, Gary Trent Jr., Kevin Porter Jr., they re-signed Bobby Portis, they signed Gary Harris. Yes, they got some of these guys on good deals, and they got creative in how to restructure their cap sheet to make all this work, but I look at this roster, and even in a weak Eastern Conference, and I can't confidently say that this is more than a first-round exit team. Max second-round exit. But second, and most importantly, because they're probably saying, well, they're not done, they can still make moves, trades to upgrade their roster, they actually can't. I was playing around with the trade machine to see what else the Bucks could do to round out their roster and upgrade some of their talent to actually put them into contention. And to my surprise, there really isn't much they can do. Even making a trade for Coby White, who's on a very team-friendly deal, very tradable contract at $12.8 million to help bring in a ball-handling guard, some added scoring and floor spacing, and there is little to no pathway to making a trade work on even a modest contract for Coby White. Trades that are realistic or even giving them meaningful upgrades are very challenging to work for the Milwaukee Bucks right now, because not only do they have over $22 million in dead money on their books for the next 5 years with Dame's waived contract, but with the addition of Miles Turner's new deal, you're effectively paying him $50 million per year between his new deal and Dame's money. Adding his salary puts you back over the luxury tax, which limits your ability to use the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. The only exception that the Bucks have right now to sign players in free agency is the room mid-level at only $3.3 million and the vet minimum. And then when it comes to trades, they don't have the draft capital to make meaningful upgrades. They have a first round pick they can trade in either 2031 or 2032 and no second round picks. One first round pick. You're not bringing in another star level player or even a high level role player for that matter for just one first round pick, especially when the Bucks are also limited in what type of contracts they can send out. Because aside from Giannis and Miles Turner, Kyle Kuzma is the only big high dollar value contract that would help in matching salaries in a trade for a bigger name player. But Kuzma, after playing so poorly with the Bucks last season and still having 2 more years left on his deal at over $20 million, you're going to have to give up the only draft pick that you have to entice a team to take on his contract. Bobby Portis' contract, yes, that's tradable at just $13 million, but you just re-signed him, so he isn't going to be trade eligible until later in the season before the deadline. Then you've got a bunch of guys on mid or vet min deals. You're talking about needing to aggregate multiple players in a trade to just bring in one. But then if you do that, now you don't have enough players to fill out your roster. And so in my mind, I'm looking at Giannis and how he's thinking about all of this. It was reported that he wasn't happy about the Bucks' decision to waive and stretch Dame, which I find it hard to believe that the Bucks wouldn't at least notify him beforehand of their intention. And if they didn't, that's even worse and more of a reason why Giannis might want to bounce. But if I'm Giannis and I'm looking at this roster, looking at how things have transpired over the past few seasons, seeing the limited pathways to bring in players that can get them back into title contention, seeing that the team has put themselves in a situation where they're going to have dead money, a lot of dead money on their books for the next 5 seasons. I'm 30 years old. I know my time to win is now. I don't have time to be messing around and playing on middling teams that are going nowhere. I'm seeing all this and thinking, yeah, now is probably the time. It's time to ask out and request a trade. Like, yes, all of these moves, the signings they've made so far this offseason, the waiving of Dame's contract, were all done in mind to keep Giannis. But this desperate move was short-sighted when you realize that the team still isn't good enough, and they now have limited pathways to fill out their roster and depth chart where you can say this is absolutely a team that is going to be competing for a title. And if Giannis requests a trade, which, yes, they will get a haul for him, a haul that will be a good kickstart to a rebuild in the form of draft picks and young players, but even going down a rebuild for the Bucks, especially after they just signed Miles Turner and all these other veterans, is tough when you don't have control of any of your near future first round picks. Like, yes, you can acquire other teams' picks by trading Giannis, but if your plan is to be bad for a while after trading Giannis, you're going to be shipping out lottery picks for the next few years. That is going to make it incredibly difficult to build with while you're getting late first rounders from whatever team you trade Giannis to, because wherever you're sending Giannis, that team is going to be contending. So yeah, I don't really know how else to say it, but the Bucks are kind of screwed, both for now and for the future. I do think Giannis will eventually request a trade, whether it's this offseason or at some point before the deadline, and they likely won't get peak value for him because teams will know the Bucks won't have as much leverage when a superstar wants out. Just an unfortunate circumstance for the Bucks, who won the title 4 years ago and are starting to look like they might have to start this whole thing over. I would love to hear what you guys think, though. You let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.